Good evening. I am Zach, and I've been doing these videos so I read a book and then I try to talk about what I learned and my thoughts and opinions about it. And it's been my fourth book, I believe, that I'm sort of talking about. And it's really for my own posterity, so I can look back in 20 years and see exactly where my mind was at that specific day in terms of what I thought about the books or this particular book. But today we're going to talk about The Black Arts by Richard Cavendish. And it's called An Absorbing Account of Witchcraft, Demonology, Astrology, and Other Mystical Practices Throughout the Ages. Now, why do I have this book? No, I'm not trying to be a magician. No, I'm not trying to cast spells on my enemies. No, I'm not trying to attract for someone to love me or fall in love with me. I'm not trying to cast it. I already can do that without. I don't need a book. Okay. So it's just a fascinating title, and I was like, let's see, this could be a little interesting. So my final reading this 300 pages of this, and no offense to Richard Cavendish. He's an Oxford scholar, it says. Yes, educated at Oxford. He spent, I'm sure, I can only imagine how hard it is to sit down and write a book in any particular niche subject. So I want to commend him for doing it. However, and who am I to give an opinion? I don't have a literary or English degree, but I still can have an opinion. And I think the whole thing is a crock of shit. And here's why. I mean, it delves into a lot of rituals, and my main problem with this is the amount of unnecessary specificity one needs to have in order to conduct a spell properly is just insane. For instance, he goes into some detail, but I just give you a short example. The robes, let's say you're a magician, and not a magician, like a wizard, or whatever they say. I mean, you're trying to summon a demon. I don't know why you would want to summon a demon or play with those dark forces, but I'm assuming you just want to summon him and ask the demon some critical questions: who's going to win the election, or should you follow a keto diet, or whatever the question is. And let's say you want to really know, so you want to summon the demon, and in order to summon the demon, you have to have the following requirements, and these are just an example. For instance, your robe needs to be made from some virgin sort of thread on a Tuesday by a black-haired girl with who's actually is in love with somebody who's actually is her sign as a Cancer. Like very specific. Okay, so you got to find this girl who's a Cancer or a Taurus, and then okay, so you found the girl, you got the robe. Now, then you need to be able when you do the spell, for instance, there was like an example where you need to have 5 points, the pentagram, and one of the points you need to have a head of a black cat who's been feeding on human flesh. Now, where are you going to find that? That's just insane. So that's one of the requirements. Then you need to have. Then when you recite these incantations, you need to make sure that your head is facing north, your body's facing south, that the wind, the temperature, and the humidity is 30%, and like all these specifics. And who knows? And then let's say you got all those right. Who knows if you even reading the Latin or whatever the incantations or whatever the word is correctly. Who knows? So anyway, the amount of loopholes and the amount of the percentage of doing the ritual incorrectly is extremely high. So I don't see anyone who can possibly do this black magic sort of thing correctly. Now, another thing, surprisingly, Cavendish writes that the black magician, the black wizard who practices black magic, should be abstain from sex prior to this ritual for 7 days, and also eat very healthy. That way you are mentally clear and are able to focus with all your strength and mental clarity to this task at hand of summoning a demon. So that was a bit surprising, because that's kind of like, what a great idea. That might give you, it's kind of like, wow, good suggestion. You know, what else? So in the introduction, um, I mean, I wrote a whole review on Goodreads, and you can go read that. And it was just, I think, 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs in detail. And now, 2 weeks later, I'm trying to sort of talk about what I thought. You got my main opinion: is it's a crock of shit. And no disrespect to any numerologists or any people who dedicate their life to making charts. Or there's people that are making a lot of money, like, excuse me, creating birth charts and telling you exactly how your future will unfold based on the time and of your birth, where the planets line and stuff. Unfortunately, my mother doesn't remember exactly the time when I was born, and I was joking around with my friends saying that it's impossible to know when you were born, when you were found, you know, when you were found, floating in a river. I'm just kidding. But I'm just going to bring things that I found interesting. So, for instance, he brings up Madame H.P. Blavatsky, Russian-born New York resident who was the mother of sort of a occult movement in America. And he says that she left her cushy sort of environment in New York City to go study the occult and mysticism in India. So I was like, wow, I should really look her up because A, she's Russian. That's interesting. Two, she immigrated from Russia to New York. That's also interesting. And then she dedicated her life to occult and mysticism. That's another thing that's interesting. So there, I'd like to read about her. What else? Oh, I made a note that Cavendish writes that negative thoughts and harmful thoughts do not dissipate. So, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. Um, that kind of reads true to me because if you spend your time conjuring these negative thoughts about somebody and having this animosity towards somebody and just anger and just all this energy and this like storm that you're creating, I feel like it doesn't just dissipate; it still is contained somewhere. So it really spoke true to me that that energy stays somewhere. It's in an object, it moves somewhere. It's in you. It's stored away in you. It can be easily accessed. It's like that energy doesn't dissipate. So all that anger is just somewhere in the ether of the earth. And then he talks about, so Cavendish talks about how a really successful black wizard, a black magic practitioner, is able to concentrate and focus really intensely in order to construct a mental image of whatever they're trying to achieve, and hoping, not hoping, and knowing that that is how they get their spells done. So that kind of was like, wow, that touches upon the secret and sort of the whole manifesting movement that we've been, sort of peripherally experiencing everywhere. If you want to make sure you're manifesting, are you manifesting? Are you making sure you're writing that on your on your vision board? Are you constantly manifesting it? Are you thinking that you already have the job, like stuff like that? And it rang true to me. I'm like, wow. So what we're doing is what he suggests for a black magician to do. If you want it to be true, just think it, and it will happen. He mentions a well-known verse of Psalm 91, which is beautifully written, and it goes something like this: "Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday." This passage was believed to be a powerful charm against evil spirits. It's quite lovely, very poetic, beautifully constructed. Then in chapter 2, I learned about a thing called Witch's Ladder, which is somewhere he writes that it's been found. The first witch's ladder has been found somewhere in a Victorian house, and people weren't sure why their feathers and sticks so tight together with some ropes and some animal hair. Basically, I learned what a witch's ladder is. I actually looked it up on Etsy, and you can buy a witch's ladder if you want one. Um, I'm not sure what the use of it though is. Oh, it said that the main use. It says witches sometimes tied knots to stop cows from giving milk, but their main use in witchcraft was to prevent a couple from enjoying the pleasures of the bed. So this is where I started to lose my sort of interest in this book. This is where I started to go, and this is page what? 14. This is where I started to go like, okay, so this is what it says, the main reason the witches would do a witch's ladder, which is actually, it's like a wind chime. Just imagine it's hanging with lots of knots tied together and lots of feathers and lots of animal hair, and it's just like an art piece, right? Beautiful sort of art piece. And it says the main reason for creating Witch's Ladder is to prevent a couple from enjoying the pleasures of the bed. And immediately I was like, well, now the man has something to blame for his inability to perform. You know what I'm saying? Oh, sorry, honey. I think it's Witch's Ladder. I think someone cursed me. There's a witch in this town. Yeah, that's why. You see, she's preventing us from having the pleasures of the bed, which is why you're so decided. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, wow, that's the main reason. So stuff like that. He was just, how can it be taken seriously if that's the main goal? I mean, we're not trying to get rich, or we're not trying to, like, what is the goal of what is the witch trying to get? I mean, if she's not trying to get rich and die trying, then why make the witch's ladder? Okay, so you successfully, if you're a witch, so you successfully messed with some random couple, your neighbor's sex life. Now what? All of that work just to mess up their sex life? It's already going bad. Okay, so I did all this studying as a witch to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are we doing that? I'm so confused. We're not going to try to like poison the king and try to be the queen, or try to take their throne, or try to get into politics. We're just going to mess up with the neighbor's sex life. That's why I was like, you lost me, Cavendish. I like page 14. I'm gone. I continued reading. There's some interesting facts. I mean, this book is semi-interesting, semi-dry. But I kept on going. I was like, maybe it will reveal itself to be a well of wisdom for me, or just a well of fascination. Nope. Then we go into colors. We go into the Modern Magician. Don't remember anything there. Some poem. Oh, now we go into the official chapter 2. It's called Names and Numbers. So basically, the premise and the summary of this chapter is that if we assign a number to each letter of the alphabet, therefore we can sort of not digitize, but give a value to your name, and then we can add all those numbers together into a single number, and then we can look up what that number means. Okay, so I did that for my name, and I got number 7. And number 7, if I 22, it gives you like, it gives an example. Marilyn Monroe got a number 5, and it means sex goddess, and like it means, killed early in her life, like stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so I got number 7. Let's try to find what number 7 means. I remember it means something like you're a hermit, and you like to spend time at home, and you like to focus on trying to get wise, and it's a godly number, and you're stuff like that. And I was like, wow, that rings true. This is all like a horoscope where you read a horoscope and it's like vague, but you kind of can apply it to your life and be like, wait, so I am having a weird day. It is true. Or you know what? I just found $20 on the floor. I guess that's the surprise financial success that they were talking about in the horoscope. I guess it is true. Like stuff like that. You can make anything. You can spin it in so many ways. You can convince yourself of anything, which is why I never read horoscopes, because that specific horoscope applies to millions of people. I don't know about this. Okay, number 7. No, 7 is what I got when I took my name and I broke it down by numbers, added it all up. I did the whole thing. I followed the instructions. So 7 is the number of the scholar, the philosopher, the mystic, and the occultist. That's me. Okay, maybe that's why I'm reading this book. That's why I'm attracted to stuff like this. I was supposed to be reading a philosophy book or something useful. I ended up spending my time reading this. That's okay. 7 are natural recluses. That's true. I like to be at home. I'm recording this video by myself in my room. So there, he got me there, gal. They like to withdraw from the maddening bustle of the world and be alone to meditate and reflect. That's me down. Dignified, reserved, self-controlled, serious. They have no patience with foolishness or frivolity. That's not me. I'm a clown. I have all the time in the world for some foolishness and frivolity. They care nothing for money and very little for physical comfort. I don't care about physical comfort, but I do care for money. I do not want to starve or wear H&M clothes. They have powerful, penetrating intellects, sure, but there's also a dreamy side to their character. Highly imaginative. I'll take that. I've done improv. I've studied improv actually for many years. Sometimes fey and strange. I bet you can tell me that. Okay, they're often extraordinarily bad at explaining themselves and their ideas. Did you get anything I said? Probably not. Okay, that's true. And they tend to dislike being questioned or argued with. You can question me. I love to debate. In my head, I want to. That's all I want. Debate. I want to be able to debate with somebody, and therefore sharpen my ability to express my thoughts. Aloof, superior, witheringly sarcastic. My aloof and superior. I think I'm approachable and down to earth. So you see how it's kind of true, but also not really. I bet. Yeah. Okay, there you go. I'm a recluse and a scholar. Sure. They nailed me. Okay. So then, part 2 of chapter 2, we go into numerology and how it was important. There's all these fancy Latin names. There's all these dots. And, okay, fine. The numbers revealed. I wrote skipped. I skipped that chapter. Okay, great. Moving on. I skipped it. Then it talks about the Kabbalah and the names of power. So he wrote the Hakma Nistar, the hidden wisdom. He mentioned, I wrote that. I don't know. I have a post-it of it. I guess he talked about some hidden wisdom. What's some hidden wisdom? So I have this underlined. This chapter is called Splendid Lights, which sounds like a sort of a poltergeist kind of where the poltergeist lives. The Splendid Lights. I underlined this. If God is limitless, infinite, and eternal, what is the connection between God and a world which is finite, limited in space and time? By definition, God is unknowable, for God is limitless, and to be known to be limited. For God is limitless, and to be known is to be limited. But then how can man know God? Every idea contains its own contradiction, and God, who is the sum of all ideas, contains all contradictions. God is at one and at the same time good and evil, merciful and cruel, limitless and limited, unknowable and knowable, and all these opposites are united in the greater whole, which is God. Wow. So the question is, if God is so limitless and infinite and eternal, why is it preoccupying itself with a world that is so finite, you die. So limited, you're stuck by the rules of gravity. You're stuck here. Space and time. It also says that God is both merciful and cruel. He is a combination of all dichotomies and combination of all contradictions. For God is everything all at once. So I received that. I I, I received that. So then we talk about splendid life. So I remember reading is if God is good, how come there's evil in the world? If God is good, how come there's evil in the world? If God is merciful, why is there suffering in the world? He's everything and he's nothing. He's known and he's unknown. He's known and he's unknown. So it just he throws stuff like this at you, and I'm just like, wow, this is what he got me again with stuff like this. I'm like, okay, philosophy, let's get into it. I want to know what people think. How do they wrestle with these ideas in their head? Because I don't wrestle with these ideas, sort of take it for granted that it's unknowable. Let's just, and one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. So now we talk about 9 spheres. So he writes that the soul longs for the reunion with God, and that your soul leaves that place with God and sort of flies through the solar system where you to Earth, where you're about to be born. As it flies to the solar system, it's sort of, I imagine in my head, Casper the Ghost flying through the solar system, and as it passes different planets, how the proximity to that planet, they scoop up the characteristics and build this bouquet of characteristics, which is your personality. For instance, if your soul flew really close to Mars, it has picked up the characteristics of ferocity and courage. So if you're courageous and ferocious, it's because your soul was flying a little too close to Mars. And if you have a gigantic ability to love, and then your soul flew really close to Venus. So this is I guess the theory that he proposes of how we get our personality is through our soul, and then there's all these fancy words that I'm sure is, I don't know, Aramaic, archaic, Aramaic, Latin, I don't know. It's Hest, Hakma, Kether. So there's like a graph, and it's all connected. There's a fancy graph that's called a diagram, which is called a tree of life. Okay, and I walked right past it, and I said, interesting, interesting. I go, okay, great. And now we walk into the room, which is tarot cards. And then he throws another diagram at us, and how, I mean, it's all mathematical. I'm sure you can separate the deck of tarot cards mathematically. I'm sure there's a PhD student who's done that, the way mathematics work into tarot cards. And there's a diagram that features all of the, the standard characters of a tarot card deck: the Fool, the Juggler, I don't know, it says the Female Pope, Wheel of Fortune, Hanged Man, and it's all interconnected together to build the paths and the tarot. Okay, so I said that's nice. I moved along, and it gives you basically a theory of, not a theory of, just the way tarot works, sort of a light definition of what each card means and represents. Um, he mentions that the tarot cards were invented by ancient Egyptians, which is nice. I didn't know that. Um, okay, great. We're moving on, moving on, moving on, moving on. More graphs, more letters, more numbers. More graphs, more letters, more numbers. Okay, more graphs. More graphs, more graphs, more graphs. Then we go into the stone and the elixir. I guess what I liked when he said, now it's the foundations of alchemy. The foundations of alchemy. Now he says that alchemy is an imbecile predecessor of modern chemistry, which I clearly see that it is. Um, he says alchemy is an imbecile prelude to modern chemistry, and there's I mean, I've taken science in high school. I don't think I've taken science in college, but I remember the whole concept of matter, how matter cannot be created or destroyed, and everything's made out of matter. There's also a thing called dark matter, but I haven't learned that, and I guess it's still sort of on scientists are not able to define what dark matter is, but he talks about first matter, that it cannot be created or destroyed. Okay, scientifically that seems correct. Okay, so the whole idea of alchemy is that everything is made out of 4 elements: water, air, gas. Oh, I guess everything's made out of 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and air. 4 elements. And gold is the most, at the time, if it's the Middle Ages, the medieval times, gold is the most coveted metal, and it represents riches. Gold. If you have gold, you're rich. So obviously, everyone's trying to get gold. So there's an idea that if you combine those four elements in a certain proportion, you can get gold, which is what transmutation is. You can take one substance and transmute it into gold. So we're all trying to get gold. Here we go. We're gonna get gold. He writes that the first major step in the alchemical work was to reduce a base metal to first matter, which killed by stripping away its outward form and released the spark of life hidden in it. It's this beautiful, even though I said the whole book is a crock of shit, there's some nuggets of wisdom and some nuggets of very interesting information. So he says that when you burn wood, a solid object, what you get is ash and gas. You get ash and gas when you burn wood, which is parallels to when you die, your body becomes whatever waste product, but what is released, much like gas, is your soul. So it's a beautiful parallel between your soul and your body and wood being burned and gas being released and smoke. And that is all in the process of stripping down the material into its most raw form, which is first matter. Yeah, you know. Then he talks about the making of Philosopher's Stone, which turns everything into gold. And I'm like, wow, Harry Potter, here we go. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Basically, it's a stone that turns anything into gold. Transformations. I think it's like an urban myth. Oh, there's a stone that can help us turn anything into gold. We should all try to acquire it. It's like the goblet of the Holy Grail. How can we get the stone? And there's elixir of life. How do we get the elixir of life so we live forever? How do we get a stone that turns anything to gold? That way we're rich. And how do we get an elixir of life so we can live forever? So there's like a few pages on elixir of life. There's no recipe, so don't even bother. So then we get into chapter 5, which is astrology. And the way he defines astrology is so beautiful. It says that astrology, literally the belief that all events in the sky are paralleled by corresponding events on Earth. So whatever happens in the sky dictates what happens on Earth. Very solid definition of astrology, I have to say. Then he breaks down astrology as an umbrella term into smaller pieces, which is natal astrology, is when you're born and how exactly at the time, like I was saying, when you were born, that the time is a very specific is all the planets and stars are in a certain spot at that time. So that proximity of everything to each other dictates your life. But in order to have those charts built, you need to know your time. Okay, fine. I don't know it, so we can't do a chart. Okay, great. So someone knows it and they can know what happened. Then there's mundane astrology, which I'm assuming is the daily horoscope. Today, it's a great day to make some business deals. Tomorrow, it's a great day for financial success. After tomorrow, it's a tough day. Okay, great. Great year, bad year. Okay, good. Daily life, blah, 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 astrology, more diagrams. Great. Then we get into ritual magic. I got into it in the beginning of this video that there's so much specificity to go into, and I guess that's what, and I guess it's kind of when you don't when you try to conduct whoever tried to conduct these rituals of magic, and if it doesn't go successfully or they don't summon the demon, they can always say, well, we didn't do it right. I guess the robe that we were supposed to be, purple and made on a Wednesday by a girl whose name is Alice. It wasn't a Wednesday, it was a Thursday. That's why that was the missing key. We did everything except the rope was wrong, so that's why we couldn't summon the demon. So there's so many, like I said, so many opportunities to fail that it's like impossible to conduct all of these details to get it all correct. It says that Greco-Egyptian texts tell that a magician prior to the ritual should remain pure for 7 days. Like I said, what a great suggestion. And on the third day of that 7 day sort of cleansing, um, purification, oh no, then on the third day of the new moon, he must go to the bank of a river, where he should build a fire of olive wood on an altar made of 2 upright bricks, like stuff like this. Okay, so I'm gonna go down a river. How is this necessary? Oh, in the Grand Grimoire, for instance, it says that the magician must abstain from company of women for an entire quarter of the moon and may not eat more than 2 meals a day during that period. So it's pro fasting, which is good for your system to reset, to get some. So you go into keto, your cells repair other cells, your body repairs cells that are damaged. It's wonderful. See nothing wrong with that. Solid suggestion. Okay. All right, all right. Oh, here I put a star on this robe specific. The magician's robes are another important factor. Um, well, they want you to use a sort of mimic a priest's robe, sort of to sort to sort of to mimic the ritual, the religious ritual. So you're doing a religious ritual, so your robe should mimic a priest's robes. Okay, fine. It says that undergarments should be made of linen or silk and should be white for purity. Okay. Shoes must also be white, and the magician ought to wear a white hat or crown with names of power written on it. Yahweh and all of that stuff. Okay, so they want it all white. A full white outfit. Linen is nice, it's breathable. Silk, the silks I have worn are not breathable and didn't like silks. Okay. Okay, so now, do you know in all the movies and sort of pop culture, when there's a Satanist and they make a circle of the pentagram. So this is one of the requirements for the circle is that um, it should be made of the skin of a young goat, cut into strips and fastened down with 4 nails taken from the coffin of a dead child. What in the world? Why? Why are we doing that? Unnecessary. Okay. Oh, and this is again the head of a black cat which has fed on human flesh for 5 days, a bat which has been drowned in blood, the horns of a goat which has had intercourse with a girl, and the skull of a parasite. Where are you going to get all that? Why? It's like I feel like whoever wrote, not Richard Cavendish, but whoever wrote in the Grand Grimoire these details, they were like, let's choose the most grim and horrific requests for these people because obviously they can't get it all this. A cat who has been fed on human flesh for 5 days? Lord, no. Why is there 5 points? 5 wounds inflicted on the body of Christ. Okay. Like very okay. Who came up with this? Then it has names of demons, okay, and then each demon sort of just like a pagan god. This demon is dedicated to volcanoes. This demon is a demon of war, and it's very pagan-like. Each god has its own theme, so each demon has its own sort of theme that they do a little spin. They specialize in a little thing. Okay, and then the book is almost over. And this one I was okay. Worship the devil, and then it's a huge bibliography. So you see, thanks, Richard Cavendish. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And I don't want to disrespect. Like I said, I commend him for doing it. I don't recommend this book. It's kind of a complete waste of my time. Yeah, but I've read it. Here I am. Definitely not one. I would not read any more occult books because it's just a gobbledygook book, hunky dory, and all the sayings. So I'm looking forward to reading a book next, which I don't know, 1/3 done. It's about St. Mark's, neighborhood of New York City. That's going to be fun. But thanks for listening in for this evening lecture with Zach, and I hope to see you in the next video.